Right. So I think that 2025 is a very seminal year. Historians will remember it as the year that the tide has turned, or that the tide turned, because the conception of what is politically possible has radically shifted. It happened with three people, and three is the magical number in persuasion and in rhetoric. First came Bukele, then came Milei, then came Trump. So I think that this trinity has been completed, and it actually pushes forward for the complete change in the people's conception of what is politically possible. Because before that, most people would say that politics is just the micromanagement of decline. It's just downhill from here. There's zero representation. No one cares actually to represent their voting base. No one cares for the safety of their people. It's just going downhill. But I think that we see now a lot of leaders who are doing the exact opposite. I think that this is particularly good. And let me just give you a very brief introduction to this and contrast it with politics in Europe, because I think that the distinction between how politics right now is exercised in the Americas and how it is exercised in Europe is becoming much more visible. And the more people are viewing this, the more likely they are to want this and to demand the self-evident. Because to actually represent your people in a democracy is what a democracy is supposed to be about.
It sounds like dangerous populism to me. I think we need a bureaucracy to manage the decline and reallocation of resources to make sure everyone
exactly. So it is what I wanted to say is that, for instance, El Salvador, Bukele was in El Salvador. El Salvador was at once the murder capital of the world. He came in, he put some bad people in prison. Now El Salvador is one of the safest countries.
Not rocket science, is it?
It's not rocket science. And actually, one of the good things about it is that we don't need a revolution in philosophy or something. We don't need something radical. We actually need people to enforce laws that have been adopted and embraced for decades. But in the last decades, we have
decades.
Radical.
Since the start of time, the very concept of law, punish the wrongdoer. Like this, literally the essence of law. The very first laws that were ever written are the same as the ones we've got now.
Exactly. But if you see here, maybe this is the wrong document, but I'll just tell you the data. We have 88% of Salvadorians who feel really well walking and safe walking out at night. People in Ecuador don't. And this is they feel 27% safe, and this is a huge difference.
Yeah, very similar people, very similar culture, very similar climate, very similar environment. What's the difference? Well, the leader.
Not only the leader, it's the enforcement of the law. Yeah. Not a secret, something. Here, the murder rates, the homicide rates in El Salvador in the last decade, we had 108 at some point, 103 per 100,000 people. Now, after Bukele came in 2019, it has dropped down to 2.4. Also, he literally transformed El Salvador to one of the safest places. And it's not rocket science how he did it. Now, Milei is the second person. Argentina has suffered from decades of Peronism, decades of inflation, decades of high poverty rate. He came in, he did actually what is supposed to work.
Just for anyone who doesn't know what Peronism is, communism. It's just communists.
It's just, statism. Yeah. It's statist policies.
What happens when a communist takes over your country is they use the government to immiserate the entire population.
Exactly.
And that's happened across South America for decades. It's happening here now. It's happened across Europe. It's just communism.
And this is not rocket science. He tamed inflation.
Again, not rocket science. Stop spending money. Stop allowing the government to spend all your money.
Exactly. So, and his popularity is actually a really good thing now because the policies that he advocates are policies that frequently in the short term don't yield results. But actually in this case, I think I hear a lot of Argentinians who are happy. I have a friend who is Argentinian. He's told me that he's ecstatic because he finally found a job, and he also has someone who feels he's representing him. And what is most important, he says that there is a cultural aspect to it. There's what is called in Argentina the viveza creola mentality, which is basically the mentality that corruption is all there is and that there can be nothing else. And he says that Milei is actually leading the fight against this.
I love Milei's kind of intense look. Sorry, can we go back to it a sec?
Yes.
He's got this remarkable intenseness about him I find very engaging. I love watching him. I can never understand what he's saying, because obviously he's saying it in Spanish, but I just like seeing the sort of like, you know...
Fuera.
Yeah, but he's like a maniac against state spending, and as someone who's just recently had to pay his taxes, my God, I feel that energy. I really...
He can actually exercise elementary reasoning skills. He says, we have a
He's
goal.
an economist.
These are well, there have been other economists.
I know.
Who ruined our country.
Yeah.
So this is the goal. These are the means. We take the means to the goal, and we're on our way to achieving the goal. Now comes Trump, and I wouldn't ever expect that this was going to be something people would cheer on or something, but that this would be heard. That he just signs an executive to ban men from competing in women's sports.
The whole signing of this was so wholesome, though.
Yeah.
It was just, Trump with all these kids, all these young girls, and he just completely normally, he's like grandfather Trump handing out the pens afterwards. Haven't you had a good time? Look at that, in the best signature. And it's just like, there's something very homely and appealing about it. It's like when he was at the McDonald's and he's waving out their thing. It was just like,
it's the Grandpa Trump.
Yeah, Grandpa Trump. He's
Also,
truly moving into the sort of patriarch, caring patriarch mold, and I really approve of it.
So now that we have the Trinity, it's developing a kind of synergy to an unprecedented level. Milei now is banning sex change surgeries on minors in Argentina. You see the virtues chainsaw.
Not very controversial, really.
It's not, but that's the issue with how the left has acted in the last decades. Because if you're just a raving lunatic, then whoever's the other person, you're basically handing them easy wins.
Yeah, but also it's the thing with the left. It's the control of discourse and stigma that has been what has allowed them to get anywhere in anything. The pure negative characterization of anyone who might have a differing opinion has been a really powerful tool that we've allowed them to have for far too long.
Exactly. And I mean, Trump right now signed several executive orders that seem to me to be very commonsensical. For instance, the deportations issue. There was no issue. There was no problem. Nothing stopped him. He said, okay, they're getting deported. The president of Colombia said at some point, no. He tried to put up a fight, but at the end, he accepted. There are many of them. We've discussed them. That's why I'm putting
President
another one
Haiti
that...
is like, it's ruinous to send these people back to my country. It's like, you live in Haiti. And anyway.
Yeah. So we've talked about them a lot on our segments. That's why I'm talking about this executive order now. He signs an executive order to resume the process of creating a new national park full of statues of the greatest Americans who ever lived. I think that this is, again, a paradigm shift, because it might sound weird to people who don't follow politics, because they may think that, obviously politicians are happy and they support great Americans. But no, this is a paradigm shift, because it's a blow to the narrative of shaming.
Yep.
And this is something that we desperately need here in Europe, because for some reason the Europeans are just having a masochistic fetish with shaming and historical shame.
The West has always dominated when it has been self-confident and assertive, and it's known who it is. And it's when we've been navel-gazing and nihilistic and wearing a horsehair shirt and self-flagellating that we see the West at its weakest and being taken for a ride by Russia, China, who display all those qualities that we once did about self-confidence and assertiveness. And that's why he announced this when he was last president. And I was so happy about it, because it's a complete slap in the face to BLM, all those people those iconoclasts who are tearing down great heroes. I wish we had something like that here. My only slight, because, Americans hate monarchy, but no, the power of a president with executive orders is greater than any monarch in European history for the last 200 years. My only thing is, executive orders are so easy to repeal by the next incumbent. And it's fine to do it in the short term. I just hope now that Congress is Republican, there'll be legislation to actually ensure that this stuff lasts more than just 4 years.
I absolutely agree with you. And I think that this is important, especially for the MAGA triumphalists who literally view Trump right now as some communists viewed Castro, because Castro gave those speeches, he signed some executives, and they thought, okay, he said he's going to bring growth, so growth came. No, it hasn't happened yet. That's why it's beginning now.
Yeah, the changes need to be cemented in legislation.
Exactly. But it's a good way to start the fireplace. You need some kindling, and you need to...
It's only been 2 weeks or something.
Exactly. So it's a strong start. And I think that it is a good message that I'm here to do business, and I'm here to form an alliance with people who mean business, rather than just want to partake in lose-lose situations.
Well, as Musk said, he said, we have one chance to have this revolution, and it's now. If we don't do it now, it'll never happen. And so you do need to be an immediate disruptor. It is shock and awe, essentially.
I mean, any year of leftist subversion is a year too many, and that's good. So I want to say that here in Europe, I find European leadership abominable.
We're not in Europe.
You're not in continental Europe.
Yeah.
Or not. So is this a landmine now?
England is something apart.
Okay.
I've long maintained.
England and
Europe cut off.
Okay,
precisely. That's precisely the attitude I have.
Okay, I'm going to be diplomatic here. Is England
is
and Europe...
omphalos of the world.
Are you happy with that formulation?
That's fine.
Right. So I think in England and in continental Europe, people view politics as essentially the micromanagement of decline, and they have the exact opposite approach to politics than Trump, Milei, and Bukele have. There's always an obstacle. It's as if actually being good for your country and your people violates the human right of migrating to a country and destroying it, or wanting it to be destroyed. That's so true. It's not just cultural, it's also economical. The EU is just causing its own brain drain.
This is a true turn of phrase too. The US innovates, China replicates, and the EU regulates.
It reminds me, when in 1940, at the height of the war, when Britain was standing alone and it looked like all of Europe would fall, Churchill said in one of his speeches, he looked forward to the time when the new world, with all its power and might, steps forward to the rescue and liberation of the old. Exactly. And you've got that triumvirate, right, in Ecuador, and El Salvador, Argentina, and America, who could actually provide the means of liberation.
Exactly. So I'm tired of socialism. Whether it's fast or slow, I just don't want it. And I think that Europe, the message...
The timescale wasn't the issue.
yeah. No, but the point is that the message Europe is sending to people is, I don't respect ambitious people. I don't respect the profit motive. So you're going to have to be here and just abide by my regulations.
Well, notice that the entire aspect of the European Union is about predictability and certainty. And the problem that they have with what you're suggesting is you are literally offering them unpredictability and uncertainty. Things may happen in the future that you're not in control of. So, of course, they're intrinsically against it.
Exactly.
The entire managerial frame is designed to know precisely what tomorrow is going to be like. And if you can not guarantee that tomorrow will be exactly like today, they're going to reject it out of hand.
Exactly. And when you have a leadership that says, I don't respect ambitious people, and I don't respect people who want to innovate, and I don't want to respect the profit motive, you have someone across the pond like Trump who's signing an executive order to profit from that brain drain, and he says he's establishing an AI innovation refugee status for tech entrepreneurs and AI researchers fleeing EU's restrictive A laws.
We should have been doing this. This is what we should have been doing with Brexit.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So what do we have here in England? We have a government that is talking about non-crime hate incidents. I mean, that's not the way to go forward.
You would think.
No, it's not. It's just not. It's subjectively absolutely true.
And yet here we are with our non-crime hate incidents as all the brains go to the United States.
We have also voices that say, well, pedophiles can't be deported because it violates the human right of their family to have them close to them, or it violates the well-being of them to have a close family life.
So what they're saying is the pedophile needs unlimited access to children, is what they're saying there.
Well, they're saying that if the pedophile gets deported, the family of the pedophile is going to have a negative well-being. It's going to impact their well-being.
I'm sure it'd be perfectly fine to keep the paedophile in the house with his own children.
That didn't stop that. This kind of rationale didn't enter Trump's mind when he was negotiating with Colombia and with Haiti. But for some reason, people here in Europe and England think.
We don't even need to, it's not even about the ECHR, We've had 14 years where we could have got rid of the Human Rights Act and the Equalities Act. It was the Human Rights Act of Gordon Brown, Tony Blair that tied us into that.
Exactly. We have here headlines like this: Migrant shambles as unnamed judge lets paedophile we cannot name to protect his privacy stay in UK because Pakistani's family might disapprove of him lasting after barely pubescent girls. So there we have political...
What's wrong with our judges, man? We've got such a problem with our judges.
The problem is that they're allowed to take risks with the safety of European people, of the native population of European countries, that they're not prepared to take with convicted criminals. Because it's not an argument. You can't make that argument. It's not a sound argument.
Thrash him, then deport him. I mean, it's really not very complicated.
The other thing now we see is people saying that they're bisexual, rapists and others, so I can't be deported because I'm bisexual.
Yeah. Exactly. And all this is contributing to actually the decline of Europe. So it's not a surprise if you see politics as the micromanaging of decline. Yeah, you're going to face decline. Here we have a list of bombings in Sweden. It resembles a band's tour schedule.
3
literally
in one day.
Different cities. It's 33 in January. I don't know. I thought that Sweden was supposed to be the gem of Scandinavia, according to social democrats who were saying, look at how all these policies come into fruition.
The rape and bomb capital of the world. By 2050, approximately 30% of the nation will be Muslim, according to the latest stats. But don't worry, because diversity is our greatest strength.
Progress, Rafe. It's progress. You don't understand.
Here, for some reason, we have Germany shooting its own feet.
Ah, yes.
Economically speaking and energy speaking. Look at the nuclear energy production of its own. It literally turned its back on its nuclear program.
I know, it's so unbelievable. We're going to get into this in the next segment, actually, because it's just so ridiculous.
Crime in Germany, in every kind of violent crime, is rising by at least 10% per year. We have the same pattern that follows politicians that constantly make virtue signaling remarks, but actually end up doing nothing. And we have the Greens saying, well, maybe we should ban knives. Maybe we should we should ban men and women in train carriages. Micromanagement of decline. We have men in balaclavas in Belgium coming in and just firing Kalashnikovs, AK-47s, pardon me. Why do we have to live like this?
Why are these people here?
And just Millet gives us the answer. If anyone is talking about this in Europe, they are immediately being branded as 20th century, mid 20th century Germans by their own establishment. So we have an establishment that, in the name of protecting our democracy, is actually promoting incredibly unpopular agendas. It's turning the back on its people, on the native population. It's mostly composed of unelected bureaucrats who are essentially saying, if you want common sense, you're far right. Yes. I'm going to destroy you. That's no way to go forward.
I've just come to accept that I may actually be far right by their standards.
Oh, really? I would never have thought that.
Yeah, I know. I just accept,
So,
I actually don't want rampaging foreign lunatics.
Well, we've got at the New Culture Forum, we've got coming out on Sunday, our new documentary, Heresies, and I think it's the most powerful thing we've ever done, and it's called Britain's Silent Rape Explosion. Yeah. And it actually goes into why we've seen this great cover-up of the ethnic identity of the perpetrators of rape, not just in Britain, but in Germany, in Sweden, and elsewhere. And of course, it's being covered up because our elites don't want us to find out that they're the ones who've actually caused the
and because the commonsensical belief that the role of the police is to actually protect the liberties of the people was rejected by someone who said, well, I want DI, I want several ethnic positions disseminated across some positions, and the job of the police suddenly didn't become to ensure
but you're not considering
public
the
safety.
liberties of the criminal.
Yeah, it's DI. DI is not about doing the job, it's about getting the job.
Correct.
Or as Musk said, DEI is DIE.
Exactly, yeah. So the more we see people like Trump, Milei, and Bukele, the better. I hope they change the paradigm in of this side of the Atlantic as well.
Well, what's interesting though is that we've seen a great swerve to the right across the West. So you've seen the most conservative government in New Zealand now elected. You've seen Geert Wilders going into power. Of course, we have Maloney as well, who was invited to the inauguration. Yeah. Obviously, Orban is there. The rise of the AfD and Le Pen and so forth. And if you look at last year, analysis was done, and the gap between the right-wing share of the vote and the left-wing share of the vote is at its widest since 1990. Yeah. The left haven't been this unpopular since the Cold War. It's 46% of the West voted for the right versus 30-something for the left. Yet despite that, all of the levers of power, all of the media, all of the institutions are still perpetuating this left-wing global perspective.
Although that may change since Donald Trump and Elon Musk have torn out the financial nervous system of their entire network. It turns out that left-wing media was astroturfed by the US government, if you can believe it.
If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.